We need to speak close to the mic. I know it feels super weird, but especially if you're wearing a mask, it is helpful to ensure that our interpreters can also hear what you're saying clearly. We do have interpretation available this evening in American Sign Language, in Mandarin, in Spanish, Somali, Russian, and Vietnamese. If you are here in person and you need to access interpretation, you can speak to Sophia or Julia at the top of the room, and they'll get you what you need. This meeting is the last of a series of 4 public hearings that the Charter Commission is doing, and we're, again, really glad to see all y'all out here and thankful that you came out this afternoon. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted online later, so if you'd like to watch it later, please check out the Charter Commission's website, or you can share this link with anyone who you think might be interested. So our agenda for this afternoon, we are going to get started with our charter commissioners providing some opening remarks, and then we'll have a short educational presentation to give you an overview of the commission's proposed charter amendments, and then we'll open it up for public testimony for community members to testify. We'll finish up our hearing today with some closing remarks from a few of our commissioners here today. And thanks so much for commissioners for coming out. It's lovely to see you all in person after nearly 2 years together. So folks know when we get to that portion of the meeting, you'll see the list of folks who have signed up for public comment on the screen, or right over here in the corner, so you can see when your name is coming up. And we'll also be taking some hands for folks if you didn't get an opportunity to sign up and you would like to testify this afternoon. So the Charter Commission, as I said, has had 3 other hybrid hearings. And we're in our final home stretch of hearing public comment. That public comment period for the proposed charter amendments closes at 5 p.m. on Monday, May 30th. That is tomorrow. So don't forget, if you've been thinking it over and you'd like to submit public comments, you can do so by emailing charterreview@portlandoregon.gov. That's charter review, all one word. You can also call 311. You can provide written comments by mailing it to Charter Review at the Office of Management and Finance at 120 Southwest 5th Avenue, room 901, Portland, Oregon, 97204. And if you would like to get that in writing, I'm sure the folks, the staff helping out this meeting at the front, Sophia can get you what you need if you would like that address or any of those details. Okay, well with that, I will pass it to Commissioner Cruz to share some opening remarks.
Awesome, thank you, Allison. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Commissioner Gloria Cruz, and I serve as one of the co-chairs for the Portland Charter Commission. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you this afternoon, and I want to thank you for taking the time on a really beautiful Sunday here in Portland to share with us what's on your mind about charter reform and how you can help us improve our proposals. I want to thank our staff for helping us move along in this process, our interpreters, Open Signal, and Portlanders like you for joining us today. The city charter functions as the city's constitution. In December 2020, City Council appointed 20-member charter commission to review the recommended changes to the charter. If 15 or more commissioners agree to the recommended change, the recommendations go directly to the ballot for Portlanders to vote on, and it's only by a vote from Portlanders that the charter may be changed. Last summer, the commission decided to approach the charter review in 2 phases, meaning 2 sets of issues and 2 election cycles. The first phase that we are now in is focused solely on 2 issues, form of government and elections. The second phase, which will begin this summer, may consider additional reforms. Phase 2 recommendations will be voted on by December 2020 and referred to a 2023 ballot. The Charter Commission will put its recommendations on form of government and elections on the November 2022 ballot. The Commission prioritized November 2022 elections because it's the election with the highest voter turnout during this time that the Commission is working. And the Commission believes that we want the most Portlanders as possible should decide these fundamental changes. The Charter Commission began its work by agreeing that any potential reforms would be evaluated based on their ability to advance a set of desired outcomes. Those desired outcomes are 1, a participatory and growing democracy with more voices being heard in elections. 2, an accessible and transparent government with counselors who are easy to reach. 3, a reflective government and counselors who represent their communities. 4, a responsive government with counselors who understand your community's needs. 5, an accountable government with counselors who answer to the people. And 6, a trustworthy government with counselors who safeguard democracy. We also recognize the important work of charter reform requires engaging with Portlanders across neighborhoods, lived experiences, and backgrounds. The Charter Commission is committed to a community-driven process informed by equitable, accessible, and transparent community engagement. We partnered with the Coalition of Communities of Color on design and implementation of community education and engagement activities. And this is to meaningfully engage in Portlanders' diverse communities in the charter review process and establish a community engagement cohort made up of 7 community-based organizations. We thank all of our community-based organizations for partnering with us. On the slide is a snapshot of some of the engagement to date. To date, we have hosted 26 community listening sessions. We've received 1,263 public comments and have had 100 briefings with community groups across Portland. Our past 14 months of independent research and community feedback has led us to our proposed changes to the city's charter. This afternoon's educational presentation will explain those changes. Last month, the Commission worked with the City's Attorney's Office to draft amendments that align with our agreements. We released the proposed charter amendments on May 3rd, and they are available on the Charter Commission's website. Sorry about that. The public comment period on the proposed amendment, no, that's not it.
Computer, dagnabbit.
Is that right? Yes. Sorry, folks. Yes, the public comment period on the proposed amendments ends May 30th at 5 p.m., like Allison mentioned earlier. After the public comment period, the commissioners will reconvene to deliberate on our proposals based on public input. The commission will vote on a final set of proposed reforms on June 14th, and we would like to thank you for being here, and we really look forward to what you have to say this afternoon. Turn it back to our presenter.
Thanks so much, Commissioner. So now I'm going to turn it to Commissioner Spear, who's going to walk us through that educational presentation. Commissioner Spear.
Great. Thanks, Allison. Again, my name is Andrew Spear, and I'm a longtime East Portland resident and proud to serve on the commission and represent East Portland. We have about a 15-minute presentation to update you on our proposed charter reforms and some basis for where we're at today. On March 31st, the Charter Commission preliminarily agreed on a package reform to advance to voters. All 20 charter commissioners supported the package, which recommends 3 major changes. First, allowing ranked candidates in order of their preference using ranked choice voting as a voting method. Second, 4 new geographic districts with 3 members elected to represent each district, expanding the City Council to 12 members. Third, a district-based City Council that focuses on setting policy and a mayor elected citywide to run the city's day-to-day operations with the help of a professional city administrator. Portland is the only large city in the United States that has a commission form of government. In the current commission form of government, the mayor and the city commissioners directly manage the city's bureaus and set policy, which strains our elected leaders. Elected leaders are tasked with big administrative roles, even if they don't have expertise to run bureaus like fire, water, police, which Portlanders rely on. Bureaus cannot make a long-term strategic plan to serve the city because the leadership of the Bureau can change at any time after an election or if the mayor decides to reassign them. Because each elected official focuses on their individual bureaus, our city lacks a uniform vision to address current changes. Our elected leaders are also not accessible to Portlanders because they are weighed down by day-to-day management of city bureaus. When our elected leaders are not accessible to the community, there is a lack of understanding of what the community needs. Portlanders have told us they want to make structural changes to the city government so that the city can better address the issues we face. And the Charter Commission has agreed. Under our proposal, City Council will no longer directly manage city bureaus. City Council will focus on making policy and engaging and serving Portlanders. A mayor elected citywide will run the city's day-to-day operations with the help of a professional administrator. This structure of government is called the mayor-council form of government. In the mayor-council form of government, the roles of the city leaders are clearly defined and so that Portlanders know who to hold accountable. It also ensures our elected leaders are accessible to the community and have the time to build meaningful relationships with Portlanders, and those relationships and connections can better inform city councilors as they develop policy. If the proposal is adopted by voters, a mayor will no longer serve or vote on city council. One city councilor will be chosen by their peers to serve as council president, and the president and preside at council meetings. The structure has a separation of powers lacking in our current system. City council will make the laws, and the mayor will carry out those laws. 7 councilors, which is 50% plus 1, will be required to pass legislation. The Charter Commission is also recommending that we add a provision to the charter on budgeting. The current city charter does not mention budgeting. A mayor will be responsible for proposing a budget no later than May 5th of each year. City Council will function as the budget committee and is responsible for approving the budget. City resources can only be spent in confidence with the budget approved by council. In a mayor-council structure, a mayor will be able to provide political leadership to quickly address urgent local issues. And since a mayor is elected citywide, they will be accountable to voters. The Charter Commission's proposal ensures that there are checks and balances on our elected officials to create a more transparent and accountable government. While a mayor will have executive authority over city business, they will delegate some critical responsibilities to a professional city administrator. Portland residents rely on efficient and effective deliveries of service, and we need a form of government in which professional city administrators can effectively manage the city's bureaus. A city administrator will oversee city services such as road maintenance, fire safety, and water services. The city administrator will be nominated by a mayor, subject to approval by a majority of city council. A mayor will provide day-to-day supervision of the city administrator. The city administrator will be in charge, with a couple of exceptions, of hiring, firing, and supervising bureau directors, better insulating the bureaus from political jockeying and improving service delivery. The Charter Commission carved out 2 exceptions to this rule of the city, to the management of city bureaus, for the city attorney and chief of police. Those positions will be nominated by the mayor, subject to approval by city council. a mayor may remove the city attorney and/or police chief. In 1913, when Portland adopted the current commission form of government, City Council was reduced from a 15-member council to a 5-member council we have today. For the past 109 years, the city's current 5-member council, including the mayor, has not grown despite more than threefold increase to the city's population. Today, we have only one elected leader per every 130,000 Portlanders. Portlanders are underrepresented compared to cities of similar size in the United States, and we have been deprived of political representation fit for a complex city of our size. Also, for more than 100 years, Portlanders have been electing city commissioners citywide. Any eligible candidate can run regardless of where they live in the city. While the commissioners are elected citywide, most elected leaders have resided in the downtown or west of the Willamette River. Currently, when candidates run for Portland City Council, they pick a position marked positions 1 through 4 that they want to run for. Then voters choose only one candidate for each position. The mayor and commissioners for positions 1 and 4 are elected on presidential years, and the auditor and commissioners for positions 2 and 3 are elected in the midterm elections. In our current voting system, the candidates that receive the most votes win. A candidate that might win the majority of votes over 50%, or they might win even if they get less than 50% of the votes. Portland has a primary election in May and a general election in November. If a candidate receives a majority of the votes cast in the primary, they win instantly. If no candidate wins more than 50%, the two candidates with the highest number of votes cast appear on the general election ballot in November. Candidates can advance to the November primary election, the general election, even if they only receive a small percentage of the votes cast in the primary. We've consistently heard from Portlanders that they feel they are not represented well by our government or elected leaders under this election system, and that some parts of Portland are not fairly represented, which is particularly true for out here in East Portland. The Charter Commission agrees, and we proposed 4 geographic districts, within each district electing 3 city councilors for an expanded council of 12 members. A councilor elected from a district must reside in a district that has been registered to vote in that district for at least 1 year before the election. The 3 councilors elected in each new district will run in the same race at the same time. The mayor and auditor will continue to be elected citywide. Electing multiple councilors per district addresses the fact that it's incredibly difficult for any one individual to represent the diversity of viewpoints, experiences, and problems facing a geographic district. Portlanders understand that just because you live in the same neighborhood as someone else does not mean that you share the same politics or priorities. Electing multiple leaders per geographic area is something we are familiar with. For example, Oregonians elect 2 senators to represent us in the United States Senate. Districts will help elected leaders build strong relationships with communities they represent and more deeply understand local community issues. Councilors' primary offices will be in their districts. Districts will also reduce the significant financial barrier to running for office citywide. The cost of campaigning will be less because candidates can focus on smaller geographic areas. Finally, we want to address community questions about salaries of the new district-based expanded city council. The city's charter is currently silent about their salaries, leaving city commissioners to set their own salaries when they vote on the budget. In order to avoid any conflicts of interest, the Charter Commission proposes an independent salary commission similar to that in other jurisdictions to set the salaries for the city councilors and the mayor. The 5-member salary commission will be composed of qualified human resource professionals with compensation experience and cannot be City of Portland employees, elected leaders, or candidates. Salaries will be set every 2 years. Portlanders frequently ask us about district boundaries. The Charter Commission will not propose a district map. We believe the districting process should be undertaken by an independent community body with the time and resources necessary to robustly engage Portlanders on this topic. If Portlanders approve the measure in November, we expect the districting process to begin immediately. A 13-member, geographically diverse, independent district commission will be seated by January 31, 2023. The district commission is responsible for preparing and adopting a district map. The district commission will be required to engage Portlanders. The district commission must hold a citywide public hearing early in its process to engage Portlanders in the district criteria, and then it must hold at least 2 public hearings in each of the proposed districts before it votes to adopt the district plan. Consistent with state and federal laws, the district commission must ensure that each district is as nearly practical is continuous, meaning that it's one connected piece, utilizes existing geographic or political boundaries, keeps communities of common interest together, is connected by a transportation links, and is of equal population. The District Commission may consider additional criteria. The final component of our proposal is ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is a voting method that allows voters to rank candidates in their order of preference. In the example you see, candidates are being ranked first choice, second choice, third choice, and so on for as many as you care to do preference for. You can rank as many or as few candidates as you'd like, or simply just choose the one candidate like in our current system. Using ranked choice voting, if your first choice does not win, you have other candidates that your vote can count towards. So if your first choice is eliminated, your vote would count for your next choice candidate. And then this reduces the number of wasted votes, since voters can see their vote counted for other candidates that represent their shared interests. Research has proven that voters using ranked choice voting feel like they have more choices, more use of their vote, and are more satisfied with the overall outcome. As of November of the last year, 43 jurisdictions across the United States used ranked choice voting in their most recent elections, including Benton County in Oregon and New York City. Another core benefit to ranked choice voting is that it allows for decisions in one election, eliminating the need for a May primary for city elections. Eliminating May primaries ensures that more Portlanders can elect their city council during one election with higher voter turnout. The commission is proposing that we continue to elect city leaders every 2 years. A mayor and all city councilors in 2 districts will be elected in presidential years, and the auditor and councilors in the other 2 districts will be elected in the midterm elections coinciding with the Oregon governor's race. If voters approve the reforms in November, The process to implement the will of the voters will begin immediately. The Independent District Commission will be seated by January 31 of 2023. The district map will be adopted by September 2023. The district-based elections using ranked choice voting will be in place for the November 2024 election. A mayor and the new city council will enter office January 1, 2025, into the new form of government roles and responsibility. The city will need to develop a detailed transition plan to allocate funds to implement the reforms. The city budget office currently estimates the ongoing cost of the entire reform package to be between 2.7 and 10.2 million annually, or 0.4% or 1.6% of the city's general fund discretionary resources. The city has $621 million in general fund discretionary resources, which are funds that can be allotted with few restrictions. Discretionary funds are approximately 10% of the overall city budget. The budget office's estimates don't consider any potential cost savings from the reform package that may be achieved through the consolidation of bureau functions and streamlining the city's organizational structure and delivery of services. The Charter Commission recognizes that many Portlanders think the city is on the wrong track and need big changes, including in the structure of city government, are needed to ensure that our government is more accountable, transparent, efficient, effective, responsive, and represents every area of our city. And then our next slide, this covers the information that Allison shared earlier on how you can engage in public comment, written public comment, or engage the commission more generally. After public comment closes, the Charter Commission will reconvene and deliberate based on what we've heard. The Commission will take preliminary vote on June 6th and send the reform package to the City Attorney's Office for ballot title drafting. While the Commission's emphasis is on finding a cohesive package of reforms that fit together and make sense of Portland in 2022 and beyond, we will let the legal analysis determine what is legally possible for the November 2022 ballot under the single subject ballot measure principle. We expect to take our final vote on June 14th, with official ballot referral scheduled for June 29th. We want you to stay engaged in our charter review. If you want to learn more about charter review, our proposed charter amendments, or get involved with Phase 2, you can sign up for email updates, submit written public comment, join virtual meetings, give public comment, request a briefing from commissioners or staff, or engage through one of our partner organizations. And with that, this concludes our presentation. I will now pass it back to Allison.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to clarify for folks, I misspoke earlier when I noted when that public comment period ends. It does not end tomorrow. We're not at the end of May quite yet, but the following Monday on May 30th. So you have another week. Or if you haven't know anybody else who'd like to give public testimony. So thank you so much for that. Okay, well, thank you, commissioners, and let's get into our public testimony portion of the meeting. So, folks, we're going to invite you, if you're here in person, to give our public comment up to the table that's in front of the commissioners right here. We're going to give you 3 minutes to share your thoughts, and if you need any interpretation this afternoon, or if you've asked for an accommodation, we'll be giving you 5 minutes. If anybody does need interpretation or needs any accommodation, you can see Sophia at the front of the room. Thanks, Sophia. So we did ask folks to sign up in advance on the Charter Commission website. If you signed up to testify or if you did not sign up to testify ahead of time but would like to testify, please, again, see Sophia at the front. You may have already chatted with her to sign up for public comment, but check in with Sophia if you'd like to give public comment this afternoon. You did not get an opportunity to sign up ahead of time. When you do come up for public comment, we'll ask that you please state your name. You can share your zip code or your neighborhood in Portland that you live in if you'd like. And if you're here testifying on behalf of an organization, we just ask you to share which organization you're here with this afternoon. I also want to make sure that folks here tonight know that we will be following our rules of conduct. So any disruptive conduct, such as interrupting someone or not concluding your testimony, won't be allowed. I'll be giving you a warning. I'll have a super professional timer on my phone that I'll be using, so you'll probably hear the chimes go off when your time is up, but I'll also be giving you a verbal warning when it's time to wrap up your testimony this evening. But if you don't conclude your testimony or are otherwise disruptive to our hearing today, we'll give you a warning, and it may result in you being asked to leave the hearing today. So we just want to make sure that folks who did sign up all get a chance to be heard, and want to thank you so much for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome and have an opportunity to be heard today. Okay, so we are going to be bringing up, I think we're just getting the screens sorted right now. There we go. We have a list of, I think, 25 or so people who have signed up for public comment this afternoon. Again, check in with Sophia if you would like to give testimony and you don't see your name on there. I know it's really small. We're going to make it a little bigger. Just give us a second. And you can hopefully see your name on there and see who's coming up. Again, we'll make it a little bit bigger in a second. So you can keep an eye out for that. And I just kind of ask that you be waiting in the wings. So if you see your name coming in a few people, you're a few people ahead, just get ready. And we'll try and keep it moving so that folks can get through and we can hear everyone here today. I'll also be giving verbal notes on who's coming up next in case you can't read that or are having any issues with the screen. Once I can also read it too. It's a little far away from me, and I conveniently forgot my glasses today. I think bio breaks, commissioners. I'm going to ask you to kind of just let me know if we need to take a quick bio break. So folks here know the bathrooms are right over here to my left and your right if you're facing me. And, oh, there we go. It's getting larger. And thanks again, folks, for your patience in joining us today. It's both really exciting to be back in person, and we're working out the kinks. So I really appreciate it. Okay, so our first couple of folks to give testimony today, we have Alex. I assume you're Alex. Hello. Then we're going to continue with Terry, Marcus, and Maddie. So hopefully you can see your names up ahead. Great. And I think your mics should be on, but maybe let's just do a quick little test.
Testing.
Cool.
They're on here too.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Commissioners, y'all ready to go? Okay, cool. Okay, Alex, you can go right ahead.
All right, honorable members of the commission. For the record, my name is Alex Riedlinger. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm the child of a black immigrant. I've been a resident of East, North, Northeast, and now Southeast Portland over the last 26 years, and I am the policy advocacy coordinator for the Immigrant Refugee Community Organization. Thank you for convening to hear how the Commission's proposed charter reforms align with our community vision for a more authentically representative democracy. I am submitting testimony on behalf of my colleagues from the Immigrant Refugee Community Organization, our clients, and extended constituencies. IRCO is a Portland-based culturally responsive nonprofit that provides a wide array of direct services and capacity-building resources for Oregon's immigrant and refugee populations. Our organization and communities of interest are culturally, racially, ethnically, linguistically, and religiously diverse. Over decades, IRCO has cultivated an environment in which diverse communities with distinct needs can seek direct support and advocacy. Many of our immigrant, migrant, and refugee communities left or fled nations where civic participation is undermined by corruption and autocracy, wherein participation is sometimes punishable by state violence. In the East African country which my mother was born, Eritrea, there is no rule of law, constitution, elections, or civil society due to the totalitarian rule of the military. So when the Coalition of Communities of Color approached IRCO about hosting a series of community listening sessions and corresponding workshops to hear about the experiences, opinions, and hopes of Portlanders, we jumped at the opportunity. We must create opportunities for our communities to raise their voices and share their wisdom, especially those who have been systematically denied power that comes with civic agency. In order to achieve this goal, we had invited participants from across Portland's ethnic communities to join our workshops and noted the excitement that folks had to shape the city's constitution, even though many are not able to vote. Through this process, we were able to confirm that our BIPOC immigrant and refugee constituents experience a myriad of institutional impediments to participating in city elections and government. Such barriers include the timing of elections and the lack of city's engagement with and accountability to our constituents and their needs. While learning about the charter review process and our current commission and election systems, participants expressed concern over the politicization of city bureaus, the need for distinct geographic constituencies, and the lack of representation of their communities in council and executive positions. Over the course of the listening sessions, participants expressed support for ranked choice voting, geographic districts with multiple city council members, and a new government structure that ensures sustained professional management of city bureaus and services through the adoption of a mayor-council system with a city administrator. Many of Portland's neighborhoods and communities lack critical infrastructure investments that ensure equitable living standards for all Portland residents. Therefore, attentive and equitable political representation is vital for the success of BIPOC immigrants and refugee residents facing gaps in access in city services. Using ranked choice voting to elect multiple council members, being able to rally behind their preferred candidate, and ensuring geographic and fair representation.
Alex, that's your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, commissioners.
Let's continue with Terry. Terry, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Terry Harris from Southwest. During these hearings, I've tried to explain the reasons why multi-member districts are a bad idea for Portland. I talked about why smaller single-member districts are better for neighborhood scale representation, for accountability and responsiveness, and how the election scheme is just going to make things worse by protecting incumbents and providing political motivations contrary to good government. Now, other than some extensive written comments I'm preparing, this is my final attempt to try and change your minds about this. So I would hope that at this point, the risks of multi-member districts with proportional representation, transferable votes, and ranked choice voting should be crystal clear to you. It's never been done in the US to the scale you want it to be done. And by the way, good luck. You're going to need Clackamas County to implement it. And you've heard a lot of public testimony that maybe this isn't necessary or desirable given the other reforms you're proposing that are perhaps more relevant and important. And for what it's worth, single-member legislative districts over on in this part of town is pretty good representation. And I would hope that there'd be a clear acknowledgement of the explicit trade-off that you would be making. Any benefits of multi-member proportional representation, which is not guaranteed and may be marginal anyway, according to your own studies, would come at the certain expense of accountability, responsiveness, constituent service, and the local representation that district-based elections are intended to address. The clear lesson from Baltimore's experience is that multi-member districts were a failure for governance, and single-member districts turned out to be far superior than the moribund, unaccountable multi-member districts the city endured for a very long time. Again, if multi-member districts are on my ballot this fall, I'm a no vote. And I suppose I'll campaign against it. In fact, if I had the financial and organizational wherewithal, I'd be out petitioning for a competing proposal of 12 single-member districts, which I am completely confident would garner more votes. All that said, I do appreciate the time and effort you've put into this important work, successfully ridding the city of the commissioner form of government and creating a mayor and city council structure for a real city will be an accomplishment worth celebrating. I moved here just recently, intending to put roots down to make Portland my new hometown, so I'm weirdly thankful for the time spent with you in your committees and subcommittees, and you're much more attractive in person. I had no idea, because it's given me the opportunity to learn more about this great city faster and more deeply than I would have otherwise imagined. But if you pass multi-member districts, I'll be here in 2024, 2026, and 2028, sending each of you "I told you so" emails. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. We're going to continue with Marcus, and then Maddie, and then Heather. Marcus, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison. And good afternoon, members of the Charter Commission and community members participating in this exciting process. My name is Marcus Mundy. I use he and him pronouns, and I'm the executive director of the Coalition of Communities of Color, who I'm here today to represent, CCC. I'm pleased to be here with you today in East Portland, a part of the city that CCC is deeply committed to ensuring is equitably served and represented in City Hall. It feels significant to be here as we discuss what this comprehensive package of reforms would do for East Portland, communities of color, and our entire city. Together, the Charter Commission's proposed reforms to our elections and government structure will transform how our communities interact with city government and elected officials. Proportional ranked choice voting will reduce financial barriers to candidates running for office and allow voters of color to more effectively build coalitions to support their preferred candidates. Cities that have switched to using ranked choice voting have seen new voices run for office and more city council leaders reflective of the people they represent. Districts with multiple council members representing each district will ensure geographic representation for East Portland and for all residents. These reforms to our elections achieve representation for geographic communities and racial, ethnic, immigrant, and working class communities, those that Alex mentioned. Portland is facing complex challenges, and we must ensure our city government is equipped with the tools to strategically plan long-term and develop a uniform vision to address these challenges. With a mayor-council government structure, our city council will have more capacity to focus on understanding community needs and setting policy. A professional city administrator will increase the efficiency and responsiveness of our city's delivery of services. As we've continued to listen to public comment and engage in conversations, CCC has identified two straightforward modifications to the current proposal to further strengthen this government structure. I had heard Commissioner Cruz ask, how can we improve? This is a way. We believe that our future mayors should have the direct tools to champion community needs by introducing legislation and can resolve essential policy and budget determinations by having a tie-breaking vote. A mayor that can proactively channel community concerns through legislation and be another voice shaping policy is essential for their political leadership. And a tie-breaking vote will reduce political gridlock and increase efficiency in our government. We ask that you include these common sense tools to position our mayor to be better accountable to voters while maintaining the balance of power that is envisioned in your recommendations. We must seize this once-in-a-decade opportunity to invest in our city government and democracy and increase the well-being of our communities of color. So thank you for your hard work to chart a better future for all Portlanders. We look forward to your next steps in the final form of these proposals. And personally, I'm pleased to see so many commissioners out on such a beautiful day in East Portland, taking the time to address the concerns of our city. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcus. Maddie, go right ahead.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Maddie Sauter, and I am a 27-year resident of the city and a 3-year employee of the City of Portland. I became aware yesterday that today was the last day I could come and present commentary about what it's like to be an employee at the city without it becoming considered advocacy and against the rules. So I'm here to speak to you. I run a former bureau. It used to be called the Bureau of Internal Business Services. It's now called the Division of Asset Management. We are a 140-person organization that provides internal services for the city. So that's all of the city's fleet services. We're also responsible for effectuating the city's green fleet plans and most of the major municipal facilities. So that's City Hall, police precincts, and so forth. We own about $1.5 billion in infrastructure. And I want to tell you, I wanted to be able to advocate and support you and thank you for all of your work, because in the 3 years that I've been at the city, it has been one of the most confusing managerial environments I've ever experienced. Some of the findings, I read them all yesterday, were pretty profound, and frankly, I think any of you could be my therapist as I've tried to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing to get to a yes vote. I have a customer stakeholder group that I convene quarterly to try and understand what budget priorities are and try to get them to a yes. because our rates are constrained to inflation. But as you can imagine, buildings do not decay at the rate of inflation. Society does not innovate and change at the rate of inflation, and the bureaus do not grow at the rate of inflation. So to get to a yes vote on funding, I either have to have a very charismatic CAO, or I have to have the agreement of every bureau. That means I have an 85-person stakeholder group that convenes quarterly to hear basic requests for funding. It also means nobody is fundamentally accountable should things go wrong. I welcome you to Google Kirby Garage. In the Willamette Weekly, there was an article several weeks ago. That's where my fleet group works. We take care of over 2,000 vehicles for the city. We do not have a smoke detection system. We do not have an announcement system that says that there's a fire. We only have sprinklers in 1/8 of the building. That's where the fleet is maintained. It's unacceptable. And yet there is no form of capital funding to advance to try and help rectify things like this unless the council agrees. I really am looking forward to a professional city manager, someone who can help depoliticize the operational processes in the city, who can help create efficiency, who can help hold people accountable, and who can bring some kind of rational program to the way that we budget, the way we administer funds, and to effectuating our strategic priorities. Right now, when the bureaus pass policy, there's no way to implement a lot of it, and then people get very frustrated that things go nowhere. There are reasons for that, and they're structural reasons. So I thank you for your work. I welcome you to chat with Internal Service Funds more deeply as you consider how to help us. And I'm an open book in case you have any questions in a non-advocating kind of way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Maddie. We'll continue with Heather. Heather, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Is this the right distance? Okay, great. Hello, my name is Heather Eichler. I use she, her pronouns, and I've lived in Portland since 1976. I graduated from high school and college here, and I raised my son here. It's my home, I love it, and I have felt comfortable over the past 45 years, never thinking that I would have to live anywhere else as I grew older, until last summer's heat dome. The heat dome really scared me and made me question Portland's long-term livability. Dozens of my fellow citizens died, and I saw that our region was not prepared for the realities of a changing climate. And this is why I've come today to present testimony. We as a community are facing great challenges as a result of climate change. The city of Portland needs to be addressing this emergency in the present and planning for future resiliency and mitigation. To do this, the city government must be reformed so that it is functional and more fully democratic. Phase 1 of the Charter Commission's recommended reforms will achieve this end. Portland community is most impacted by climate disruption. Poor folks, BIPOC, vulnerable populations need to be more well integrated into our electoral system and equitably represented in our city government. Phase 1 will make that possible. I want to thank the Commission for all of the effort that has gone into crafting Phase 1. Currently, barriers to climate action and environmental justice are deeply embedded in our city structure. Going forward, we must replace those barriers with solutions. We must join cities around the country and around the world that are adapting their charters to address the climate emergency. These reforms can't wait another decade. The Charter Commission must make climate and environmental justice its priority issue in Phase 2. To this end, I urge the Commission to establish a subcommittee to develop reforms that advance climate and environmental justice, establish an Office of Climate Resiliency and Sustainability, include an Environmental Rights and Responsibilities Amendment, include Indigenous leadership and tribal sovereignty, and enact reforms for open government. And finally, I would like to again thank all of you, members of the Charter Commission, for your care and labor in creating Phase 1, and in advance for the same effort in Phase 2.
Thank you, Heather. We're going to continue with Koa, then Terry, then Jim, and Tony. So if you hear your name, just know you're coming up. Oh, go right ahead.
Awesome. Good afternoon, Charter Commissioners and members of the public. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today, and immense gratitude for all of the labor, because we know that it's been a lot of labor that you all have put in on your own time. So thank you so much. For the record, my name is Kua Zhang. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the Advocacy and Civic Engagement Director at APANO, the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon. APANO engages Asians and Pacific Islanders to build power, develop leaders, and advance equity through organizing advocacy, community development, and cultural work. Through listening sessions and one-on-one conversations with folks, we heard concerns about Portland's city government that you all on the commission are well aware of by now, especially this far into the process. We heard that folks don't know who's leading the city or what their role is, and so they don't know who will hear their concerns. Folks were shocked when they learned about Portland's outdated form of government and the current size of council in comparison to other cities similar in size. Without understanding who is in leadership, folks felt like there was a lack of accountability and no sense of responsibility to take on difficult tasks, including finding community-centered solutions to Portland's housing crisis. Particularly for non-English speaking communities, there isn't enough voter education and outreach from the city to even know when elections are taking place, much less understand the candidates on the ballot well enough to make informed votes for one candidate. Folks want to vote for candidates who share their values and want to know that their vote carries the same power as other more represented Portlanders. Apano supports the full package of reforms that the Charter Commission has worked tirelessly to prepare alongside community partners. We believe that this full package is responsive to all the concerns that we've heard from our community members. Ranked choice voting is a voting method that's been tested and proven to result in city leadership that is more representative of the people, as well as ensure underrepresented Portlanders' votes count. Candidates of color will have their fair chance to represent their city and their community. Including multi-member city districts and removing the task of city management from city council members will significantly increase ability for leaders to engage with community and stakeholders for effective policymaking. And the consistent and professional leadership of a city administrator, our city can build a long-term vision and plan for how city services are being delivered. Apano supports passage of this full package onto the November ballot. Portlanders need all of these reforms now more than ever. We cannot wait. We are long overdue for the changes that we deserve for the Portland that we deserve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kua. Terry.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. My name's Terry Parker. I live in Northeast Portland, Rose City Park District. I've lived in the same house for almost 68 years now. I'm a fourth generation Portlander. My grandmother was one of 5 sisters that lived all on the same street. My great-grandmother in Southeast Portland. My mother migrated from Canada at school age with her 5 siblings and her English parents. I think you're on the right track, and I'm not suggesting you throw mama off the train, but there is some baggage to your proposal. A maximum of 12 city commissioners makes good sense. The districts, however, are too large for genuine district representation and need to be made smaller. Take, for example, the east side here. We've got the outer east side, the central east side, and the inner east side. That's only 3 areas, and there's different issues in all 3 of them. And to get genuine representation, the districts need to be made smaller. With ranked voting in only 4 large districts, a coalition or alliance of candidates who represent only one segment of the population or area within a district that support each other with the same views or mindset could be ranked 1, 2, and 3. This would leave other voices in the district without bona fide representation. All voices should be heard and equitably represented. Finally, a citywide mayor needs to be more than just a figurehead. At the very least, the mayor should chair the city council and have a vote. In conclusion, it seems like both the overly large districts coupled with ranked voting is a possible attempt to rig an election, possibly with a stacked deck of candidates that could easily facilitate only select communities. As for Portland's top city official, representative, and spokesman, only administrative role, it downgrades that position for anybody who may want the job and may not attract the quality of candidates you want. I do agree with the city administrator portion. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. We'll continue with Jim and then Tony.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Jim Labby. I'm here on behalf of Participatory Budgeting Oregon. We work towards more just and participatory public budgeting for all Oregonians by centering those that have least access to government decision-making power. My pronouns are he, him. I actually live in North Portland, but I've actually worked in East Portland for over a decade, well over a decade. We're here to, I want to join others to thank you and your staff in the work you've done to get us here, and to express general support for the direction of the draft Phase 1 charter amendments, but suggest some specific changes that I've underlined in my testimony that hopefully will be handed out for you to consider here in the final run. First, we support the direction with ranked choice voting for the mayor and multi-member districts. I guess the only comment is that it seems it would be important to really specify this as proportional ranked choice voting for multi-member districts. I'm not sure if it's clear enough. This will ensure the representation of all voters, will help elect a candidate they support, and the different groups of voters will elect winners in proportion to their share of the votes cast. And I think that's very consistent. There are trade-offs, as you've realized, with these different voting systems, and I think that reflects the goals that you've laid out in this process. We support multi-member district representation, and support expanding the size of the city council in a way that maintains that representation. One thing we'd really like you to consider is, with your independent districting commission proposal, is consider appointing that commission through a democratic lottery. Is something that others have spoken to you about. This would be a great chance. The public has talked about more equitable and community centers, an equitable and community-centered approach to redistricting. We have a lot of expertise in the state with the Citizen Initiative Review, which is really the first democratic lottery in statute in the United States. Other jurisdictions are using it. Milwaukee for council compensation, which would be another great use. So I would hope that could be considered. And then certainly support the direction with the unifying the executive power of the city. We recognize that Portland's are going to have concerns about this, and I think the charter should go beyond just leaving oversight and accountability solely to the city council, and really look towards these tools of participatory democracy to bring greater accountability. Boston voters adopted a participatory budgeting mandate in their charter last November, and this was specifically designed to be a check on their strong mayor form of government, as well as a means to give ordinary residents more voice and vote in decisions and sharing governance within parameters. We're, of course, excited to come back and talk to you about participatory budgeting.
Thank you, Jim. That's your time.
And thank you so much.
Tony. Sure, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Greiner. I'm a 30-year resident of Portland. I live in zip code 97212. There is a lot to like in the proposals that you guys have put together, but I think you run across a rock with pairing ranked choice voting with multi-member districts. Either one of those might work. Together they're a disaster in the making. Start with the 25% standard to get elected to office. With the power of the incumbency, almost anybody in office will be able to pull 25% when they come up for re-election. That means that you're basically establishing a permanent ruling class in city council who will only leave when they want to leave, regardless of how well the public likes them. Second, the candidate with the most votes could well end up having less power than other candidates. I just passed out the handout. This is the mayoral primary from May 2020, in which the first candidate got almost 50% of the votes, the second 24%, and the third 8%. Under your system that you propose, the third candidate selected would probably be someone would definitely be someone who had less than 8% of the voice of the votes. This is not a theoretical. This is an election we had here in Portland. So you got to rethink of that, 8%. And then the candidate who got the most votes would have one vote in council. the two candidates that did not even reach the 25% level would have 2 votes. So essentially, the majority of the public would be outvoted by the minority of the public when it comes to council decisions. That's not representative voting. There's also the problem of surplus ballots, which is in I think is Chapter 3 of the proposed charter. A candidate gets more than 25% plus 1. The extra ballots are called surplus and redistributed to other voters using the ranked voice choice method. But there's no provision as to who decides what is a surplus ballot. Is it the first ballot in, the last ballot in? Do you take every third ballot? Do you look by zip code? There's nothing there, and the potential for hanky-panky is high. Lastly, 2 of the districts will hold their elections in presidential years, 2 of the districts in non-presidential years. We know that voter turnout is always higher in presidential years. So essentially what this system would do is say half of the city will vote during a presidential year, be somewhat more representative. On the other election, half of the city will vote when there's a smaller turnout. So instead of getting more people involved in selecting city council, half of the city council will be chosen by half of the city, and then a smaller proportion of that half of the city voting. So that you're not ending up with a balanced council, you're ending up with an imbalanced council, where the candidates who run in the non-presidential years will need fewer votes in order to get in office. So in short, keep everything except go to single-member voting, single-member districts.
Tony, that's
You
the
can
time.
keep ranked choice, but
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, we're going to continue with Ju, and then we have Danny, Kim, and Annie up next. Go right ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zhou Fang. My pronouns she, her, ta. I have been a resident of Portland for 9 years, and I've lived in many neighborhoods here. My neighborhood since 2021 is Southeast Foster Powell, right next to the J District. This is my first time here, and it has been a pleasant and refreshing experience. I would like to thank you all for everything you've done on Phase 1. For Phase 2, I would like to draw your attention to voting rights, especially voting rights for non-citizens like myself, a permanent resident of the United States of America, and an immigrant from China. As we all know, non-citizens, including permanent residents, aka green card holders, refugees, asylum seekers, and undocumented residents are all affected heavily by the decisions made during elections. However, we never have a say to those policies and laws that directly impact our day-to-day lives. I would like to invite you all to put more thoughts on and prioritizing voting rights for non-citizens like me. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hi, I just want to thank everybody for being here on this beautiful day and all the work that you're doing. My name is Danny Dawes-Cox. My pronouns are she, her. I have been a resident of the Montevilla neighborhood since 2020. I just wanted to share some feedback that I had, some compliments, feedback, and concerns on the proposed changes in the Charter Commission.
Danny, I'm going to, can you speak a little closer to the mic?
Yes.
Cool, thank you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Awesome. So ranked choice voting, I really love in theory and would love to kind of see that, us all switch over to that. I do have some concerns when it comes to like the confusion and the community understanding how that system is going to work. And so just hope that if you're kind of proceeding with that, that there is going to be funding and partnership with local organizations to educate the community, because I think that that's going to be very important, and I don't want it to discourage people from voting because they are like confused and are like, oh, forget it, it's too hard. And then for the second proposed change, I agree with the setting of districts, but have concerns about the voices, like representation being diluted with that multi representation district. So maybe changing the district sizes to be smaller, and having that single representation is going to be more beneficial for the public. And then third, I love the structural changes to the government that you've proposed, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny. Kim, go right ahead.
Hi, Kim, can you hear me?
Yep.
Kim Norris, zip code 97210. I've lived in Portland for about 16 years now. I overall want to commend the work that this commission has done. Obviously, we need change in Portland, and this is a step in the right direction. I just have a couple of comments that will actually echo things that have been said earlier, and far more eloquently, I might add. I think giving the mayor voting authority with the tie-breaking vote is going to be essential to attract strong mayor candidates. Without that, I'm not sure who would be quite interested in a very difficult job. The other concern I have is about the multi-member districts, and that's been expressed by a number of folks prior to me. There was an experiment with this in Baltimore. It went very poorly. They went back to single-member districts, and as alluded to earlier, I think it would be far better to create more than 4 districts, to have as many as 12 single-member districts, to make them numerous and more smaller and provide better representation. Thank you for your chance to input.
Thank you, Kim. Annie, over to you.
Hi, my name is Annie Kalin. I'm a resident of this neighborhood, actually, and I work for a renewable energy company. I'm also the chair of the Equal Vote Coalition, which advocates for equitable voting methods such as star voting, approval voting, and Condorcet voting. I want to thank you, first of all, for holding this meeting here in East Portland. I think that shows a great commitment to this part of the city and people who have historically been left out of decision-making frequently. I applaud your recommendations to implement districting, to dismantle the commission form of government, and to increase the number of city councilors. These changes, if adopted, will greatly improve representation in Portland. In March, I testified that I do not believe that ranked choice voting is viable in Portland under state law, since it requires centralized tabulation. I still have concerns about that. Even if counties share information round by round, it still requires a central authority to tabulate the results. And it would be extremely expensive and demoralizing for Portlanders if we adopted a voting method that we couldn't implement. But I'm going to set that aside for a second and explain some other concerns that I have with ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting does prevent vote splitting in sort of a classic Nader type situation, but it does not prevent vote splitting in all scenarios. In fact, it gets worse at preventing vote splitting the more candidates are in a race, and this is especially relevant in Portland, which historically has very large fields of candidates. Additionally, the more candidates are in a race, the higher the rate of exhausted ballots. Quick caveat here, it depends on if you're going to restrict the number of rankings people can do. If you don't restrict the number of rankings, then there's a question of how are you going to fit all the bubbles on the ballot if there's a lot of candidates, so I need some clarification on that. But an example, in San Francisco, there was a ranked choice voting race where more than half of ballots were discarded by the 20th and final round. Those ballots were not counted, even if the voters' preferences would have made a difference in that round. Better methods such as star voting and approval voting are highly accurate no matter how many candidates are in a race. Your recent report stated when voters' first choices are not elected, they can trust that their vote will be counted for their next viable choice in ranked choice voting. But this is actually not true. If your first choice gets eliminated in the last round, your second choice is never counted. In fact, very little ballot data is counted in ranked choice voting. Some voters' rankings are skipped, and some voters have more rankings counted than other voters. This is the very definition of inequitable. It's no wonder that New York City's Black, Latino, and Asian caucus was opposed to ranked choice voting in that city. We don't have to go with a 150-year-old reform when modern election science has identified better options. Portlanders are innovative and courageous. Let's follow the science and get at voting methods such as star voting that will help all Portlanders have a voice. And since I have apparently a few more seconds, I'll just say that ranked choice voting is also very poor as far as transparency goes. It's difficult to present the results in a way that you can see the full support that all of the candidates received, and that's something that other voting methods do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. We're going to continue with Kevin, then Gloria, and then David. Kevin, go right ahead.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Matches. I'm the father of a 21-month-old toddler named Alexandra. We call her Alex. Those of you who have experience parenting or no parents, you know that we have a responsibility as adults to teach our kids about far-reaching principles like fairness. At the same time, something amazing happens, which is that kids have the potential to make us adults into better people. And so it's in this spirit that I'd like to use my daughter as an example to discuss one specific type of fairness with the Charter Commission called intergenerational equity. On March 10, I urged you to take action on the Portland Fire and Police Disability and Retirement Bureau in Phase 2 of your process. I observed that the Charter puts FPDR on a pay-as-you-go basis. As a reminder, pay-as-you-go means that the city does not set aside any money by spending money from the budget to fund pension benefits as they are accrued by employees. Instead, the necessary property tax is only collected after the member retires and starts receiving a benefit payment from the pension. My opinion was that this is a curse on the long-term financial condition of Portland, and I observed that it puts us out of line versus peers as well as best practices. Indeed, the only other pay-as-you-go pension in the United States is Puerto Rico. I recommend that the Charter require a comprehensive actuarial funding policy and state that future cost of living adjustments would only be considered if the plan is fully funded. I pointed out 4 benefits to funding the pension: transparency, intergenerational equity, cost savings, and risk management. So let's go into the example of the second benefit, intergenerational equity, with my daughter as the example. She was born in 2020. Now imagine a hypothetical male firefighter who retired in 2019, who worked his entire career for Portland and did his job fighting fires for decades, up until 2019. Based on actuary Milliman's assumptions, he retired at his expected age of 55 and is expected to work, not to work, but to be retired and live for approximately 30 more years. My daughter could spend her whole life in Portland, but remember, she never received any service from that specific firefighter because she wasn't born before he retired. It was the adults here in the room that were able to benefit from that firefighter's service, but the adults never set aside any money to pay for his pension benefit while he was working for them. Let's assume she's lucky enough to buy a house in Portland before she turns 30 years old. Her property tax bill would still be expected to pay for both his benefit as it comes due, as well as the actuarial funding necessary for the younger firefighters who were first sworn starting in 2007 and are actually serving her. In summary, while the older generation of employees were serving the older generation of taxpayers, no money was spent to fund their pension. The burden was passed down to the younger generation of Portland taxpayers, such as my daughter, and that is the inequity and unfair practice that I observe. Require a comprehensive actuarial funding policy. State that future COLAs would only be permitted if the plan's funded ratio were above 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Gloria, go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Charter Commission members. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of the collective package of reforms of the Charter Commission that the Charter Commission has shaped using community input and expertise. My name is Gloria Sandoval. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Policy Political Director at Unite Oregon. And we work alongside the Coalition of Communities of Color. Our organization is led by people of color, immigrants, refugees, rural communities, and people experiencing poverty as we work across Oregon to build a unified intercultural movement for justice. As a crucial part of our work is to educate our communities about voting, the city's government roles, and championing social change that enhances the well-being of communities of color. Earlier this year, I had the privilege of hosting the Ripple program, a political education series in which we learned about the different city government structures. The number of questions and frustrations I received reviewing the current City of Portland's government structure was interesting and made it very clear that we needed change. I do look forward to being able to teach about this new structure. I think it would make for a lot less frustrations. For decades, our communities have struggled to see themselves and their interests represented on our city council. Our communities have elevated the desire to have more meaningful choices on their ballots to elect the candidates they prefer by using ranked choice voting. Every Portlander has a right to vote for leaders that represent their communities. Proportional ranked choice voting will allow all of us to have a seat at the table. This method works, and voters across the country have successfully used ranked choice voting methods. Our communities have also emphasized the importance of geographic districts in which multiple council members can champion their community's needs on the city council. With multiple council members representing one part of the city, Portlanders have multiple pathways to make their concerns heard and hold elected officials accountable. Geographic districts will also help to reduce financial barriers to candidates and open the door to new candidacy. Under the new government structure, city council members that represent geographic districts will have more time to focus on constituent engagement, will increase the understanding of what residents from every part of the city need. Removing the role of managing bureaus from our city council will strengthen our city's policymaking process by ensuring our council members have increased capacity to meet with communities and create responsive policies. Together, these reforms to our elections and city government will create a system that allows our communities to thrive by ensuring they are equitably represented and ensuring community needs are met responsibly. Thank you for leading this work with values and equity and representation for us all. We are excited about the positive impacts this comprehensive package of reforms will have to strengthen our democracy and ensure our city government works for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Okay, David, Susan, and then Pablo in this round. Go ahead, David.
Thank you. My name is David Jorling. I'm a retired attorney, and I served the last 23 years of my practice in the Portland City Attorney's Office. And I retired in 2008, but nothing I say here represents the views of the city of Portland City Attorney's Office. I'm a latecomer to this process, and I just wanted to point out a couple of things. First of all, I am in wholehearted agreement about removing the duties of supervising the bureaus from the commissioners. I could write you a book about how that has hindered the administration of the city and in some cases actually demoralized the workforce of the city. So I really wholeheartedly support that aspect of this change. I really have concerns about adding council members to the city council. I think take a first step and remove those functions from the council and see how it works and see how much more responsive the city council can be as a result of that change. I think it will be drastic and a much improved council. I am concerned that the addition of additional city council members will only increase the cost of the administration of the city at the expense of the services that the city provides. The figures that were mentioned, 2.7 million to 10.2 million per year, sounds like small change, especially with a city the size of the city of Portland. But that's over a 10-year period, that's anywhere from $20 to $100 million. That's a big deal. And I foresee that budgets will be cut from the Maintenance Bureau, the Park Bureau, the Fire Bureau, and 911 and various other general services as a result of the additional staffs and city councilors that are going to be required for a 12-member council. If you go with a 12-member council, for Pete's sake, have the mayor be the tiebreaker. You need a tiebreaker. But I would suggest, as I said, that you really think twice about diverting these resources away from the city general bureaus. I just wanted to add, I did some comparisons just by way of example of several cities that have a city population similar to Portland's in respect to police officers. Boston has a city population of 698,000, and it has 2,143 police officers. Detroit, 663,502, and has 2,517 police officers. Memphis has a population of 410,000 and has 2,058 police officers. Milwaukee has Wisconsin has a population of 590,000 and has 1,850 officers. Seattle has a population of 763.
David, that's your time.
Okay, thank you. I'll submit the rest in writing.
Thank you. We'll continue with Susan and then Pablo. Susan, go ahead.
Hello, I am Susan Matei, Director of Portland's Small Donor Elections Program, which offers Portland candidates a 9-to-1 match on small contributions from residents. Our goal is to ensure that all Portlanders have a voice in our democracy and that elected officials are accountable to all of us, not just big donors. I'm here to ask you to consider moving to Phase 1, a charter amendment to make the Portland Elections Commission independent and the permanent home for the program. First, let me give you the background. When small donor elections was passed in 2016, it was given a temporary home under Commissioner 1. Everyone agrees it doesn't look good for a program that gives candidates money or their opponents money, penalizes them or their opponents, to have an elected official be in charge of the program. But there weren't other options available. The City Council, via code, tasked the Elections Commission with identifying a permanent home for the program. They recommended making the Elections Commission independent and the program home. This is how many small donor programs in other states, counties, and cities handle program administration. However, in Portland, due to the commission form of government, everything has to sit under an elected official unless the charter makes it independent. Hence, a charter amendment is necessary. The council asked the Elections Commission to make this recommendation before the Charter Review Commission was formed and irrespective of its existence. The plan had been for the council to refer this to the ballot. But because the Charter Review Commission was formed, we put the proposal in front of this body. You decided to move deliberations on this to Phase 2, given that your plates were full in Phase 1 with these major changes. We think that's totally understandable. However, the small donor elections home under Commissioner Rubio expires this December 31st. She has been a great home for us because she believes in the independence of the program and is very hands-off. But because her seat is up in 2024, our home under her expires on December 31st of this year. Without a charter amendment this November, the program won't have an appropriate new home when our current home expires. So we went back to the original plan of asking council for a referral to the ballot. Even with a council referral, we want at least an informal blessing from the Charter Review Commission. We were told, ask at the public feedback hearing. And that the Charter Review Commission might even be open to adding this to their Phase 1 recommendations. That would be wonderful. Alternatively, your informal blessing would be very welcome. Our proposal just makes the Portland Elections Commission independent and the home of small donor elections. That's all. No additional details. If in Phase 2, the Charter Review Commission wanted to flesh it out further, that would be welcome. To close, the Small Donor Elections Program and the Portland Elections Commission is already busy working through how to wrap the program around the charter changes that you all are recommending to the ballot this November to ensure a smooth transition. It would be helpful if, while we are carrying that out, we had a permanent independent home. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Susan. Pablo, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pablo Martos. I use he, him pronouns. I've been a Portland resident for about 13 years now, raising my kids here, and I've never loved a community more. So most of my comment is going to be thank yous to the commission and appreciation of the work that you're doing, but the constructive piece I want to get out of the way first so I don't run out of time is the larger City Council. I personally feel very strongly that we could use a much larger City Council than we have now, and I'm not sure 12 is enough. I'm not sure 4 districts is enough. I can, if I say I live in Buckman or Laurelhurst, that communicates something very different about Southeast Portland than when I say I live in Lentz, right? So I feel like 4 districts may not be enough, and in the early days of the city we had 15 members. I don't think our communities and our challenges have gotten less complicated since then, and I don't see why it shouldn't be 30 now. I feel like we could definitely benefit from that. That said, I recognize that the increase to 12 is long overdue and definitely a step in the right direction, so I fully support it. But getting back to the other piece of my comment, which is appreciation for you all, I've done a little reading on the history of our current city structure, and it looks like it was established by a charter commission originally that was kind of appointed by a mayor in the charter commission then was staffed by people appointed to and or friendly to the mayor, and its purpose was to consolidate power and reinforce the existing power structures rather than to make the city work better. And so I really appreciate that the way this charter commission is built is representative of our communities and making clear ongoing efforts to reach out to Portland communities as you went about your work. I've attended a few of the online meetings in the time that you've been working. I also want to say thank you for clearly recognizing the value and need for the separation of powers. The depoliticized city manager's role is going to be very important in making sure the gears of the city keep turning without somebody thinking about elections the whole time they're doing it. So thank you for building that in. And finally, there's a lot to say about ranked choice voting versus star voting versus the variations of those that are out there. And I'm sure you've gotten plenty of comment from people far more informed about that than me, but I just wanted to say thank you for taking that big step away from our current voting structure. I think I fully support it. I think the savings in running a single election and in the increased turnout will be very worth it. So I think that's everything I wanted to touch on. Thank you very much for all the work you do.
Thank you. So that concludes the folks that we know were in the room who signed up ahead of time. Commissioners, should we take a 10-minute break? Give everybody a chance to stand up? All right, so let's take 10. For folks who are here, if you do see your name up on the screen, but it's not highlighted in green, please go speak to Sophia. Or if you decided last minute you really, really, really want to give testimony, go speak to Sophia. And we'll make sure to get your testimony when we come back from a break. So let's come back maybe a minute or so after 2. And again, bathrooms are over in this corner. We've got coffee, we've got snacks. Folks, this is your one-ish. All right, well, welcome back, folks. I just wanted to check in. I don't believe that we've had anyone else sign up for public comment. I'm just checking with folks in the back. Nope. Okay, I'm just looking around the room. Is there any hands? I'm not seeing any. Okay, so I think with that concludes our public testimony for today. Thank you so much to the folks who came out to provide testimony, for the folks who stayed to listen to everyone else's testimony. Really appreciate it. So for the final portion of our hearing today, our commissioners will share some closing words, and we'll remind you of how you can continue to give public comment for one more week, and then we'll close out our hearing for today. So with that, I will pass it to Commissioner Streeter. Commissioner Streeter.
Right.
Hey.
Thank you, Allison. Hi, everyone. I'm Commissioner Amira Streeter, and I just want to thank all of you for coming out today and giving up some of your time on a glorious Sunday morning. I think it's weather like this that reminds us about how much we love Portland. And I think the fact that we're all giving our time, energy, and opinions today also reflect how much we love this city and want to see it thrive and succeed in the future. I think it's clear that the charter we have in place has really had a chokehold on the city and how the city runs, and building out accountability and equity for all of us. And I think this is obviously a once-in-a-decade opportunity to make those changes. And I think there are some really important things that have come up today that I just want to point out around the role of government and the elections pieces, along with some of the phase 2 remarks that we've heard today. So I think we can all agree that we want to change our structure of government to be more effective and more accountable. I think everyone in the room, and from what we can see, that we need change to happen. There are a couple of things that I noted that came up around the mayor being a tiebreaker, and then structures around how many council members, how large districts should be, what those districts should look like has also come up. Heard more about the representation of people, particularly residents who haven't been able to vote in the past. I think according to our values and principles that we've set up earlier around equity and accountability, that is something that we're very interested in looking at and making sure that people are able to participate in the democracy that we have in Portland. I guess there's one more thing around here too that, and I hope folks can understand that the system that we're proposing isn't perfect. There may be things that we disagree with, different opinions that we're sharing today, but I think the structure that we're advocating for now definitely brings us further along and makes our city better. And so I hope that you can hold that in your minds as we continue through this process. Please continue to tell your friends, neighbors, anyone who will listen that they have until May 30th to give their opinion about where we are in phase 1. And then we hope that you will continue to engage with us long after that to make sure this proposal that we're putting forward actually becomes reality, because we cannot wait to make these changes. I really want to thank also Open Signal, the translators, our facilitators, city staff who are here today. Thank you to Rosewood Initiative for letting us have this space. It is really great to meet in person, and I see people are trying to be as safe as possible, and that's also wonderful to see. And yeah, just thank you very much for joining us and being patient with us, giving your opinion, being understanding, and also having this civil dialogue with us. So I'll turn it back over to, I think, our co-chairs, one of our co-chairs to close us out.
Actually, we're going to go to Commissioner Porta next. For
Oh, sorry.
Oh, good. Commissioner Porta.
Again, my name is Deborah Porta, member of the commission, and I also want to thank everyone for joining today, for joining the virtuals, for just throughout the entire process, not just with your time, but with your experience and the expertise that you've brought into the room. You know, Portlanders have a lot of knowledge about their city, and that has really shown through for me and has been super helpful for me throughout the entire process. Some of the general themes that I noticed mirror Commissioner Streeter, as well as previous meetings. There's a general support for RCV, but there's still some significant concerns that we need to consider in what the eventual process looks like. There's definite support for a professional administrator. That has been probably the most consistent support that I've seen throughout this entire process. There's general support for increasing the size of council and district representation, with concerns regarding the size of those districts that are being currently proposed, the number of districts, the accountability in having 3 members per district. So there's some stuff that needs to be worked through there. There's general support for the mayor-council structure that we're proposing, but as was heard here today, concerns about what the mayor's actual role is, particularly around tie-breaking and participation in the legislative process. And I also took note of several issues being proposed for phase 2, because it's felt like there's a lot of stuff we haven't talked about because of the focus on these 2 main areas that are going to be so impactful for the feasibility of anything that comes next. So I know I'm excited to get to those next issues and just keep moving forward with the process. And I really appreciate everyone coming again. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. All right, folks. Well, as a reminder, this is our last public hearing, but you still have a week to give comments if you'd like to submit comments on these proposed charter amendments to the commission. So comments will be accepted until 5 p.m. on Monday, May 30th, and you can submit public comments by emailing charterreview@portlandoregon.gov. That's all one word. You can also call 311, or you can mail written comments to Charter Review at the Office of Management and Finance, and that's at 120 Southwest 5th Avenue, room 901, Portland, Oregon, 97204. And again, if you would like to get that written down, if you know someone who would love to submit comments in writing to the commission, please see Sophia, Diana, Julia, our staff at the front, and they can get you the information that you need. So again, get those comments in before 5 p.m. on Monday, May 30th, and help us spread the word. So with that, I'll turn it to Commissioner Mazursky to adjourn and close out our meeting today. You just took a bite of food, didn't you? I apologize.
I did. No, this has been a wonderful event. I appreciate it because we're hearing the same themes over and over, and this is definitely a way to reinforce it, and we'll be discussing it in the weeks ahead. Please come online and take a look at our upcoming discussion sessions that are scheduled, and you'll hear some of the notes that you posed today be reinforced at those sessions. So thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate everyone's work.
And with that, we're adjourned for the day. Thanks, y'all.